we have a very Western perspective of angels and demons. We have a demonology that comes from Western tradition that is not necessarily concordant with ancient Hebraic cosmology. Because if you were to ask an ancient Hebrew or the writers of the Old Testament what a demon was, they would have a very different answer than us.
Well, if you asked an ancient Greek what daimon, like
that's
even,
right.
Like even the phrase
that's
for happiness, right? Eudaimonia.
Yeah,
it's kind of like spirit.
That's a very good point, because the Greeks believed specifically that the daimon was a spirit, a disembodied spirit of a being who had lived in the world before the flood. That's what a daimon was, that they died in the Golden Age, and that their spirits persisted in the earth after the flood in the form of daimons. Well, guess what? That's the Hebraic view. That's the view that's concordant with ancient Hebrew cosmology. So, in the cosmology of the Jews, the demons are a very specific thing. So let's address first how we view demons in Western civilization. And this is, I would say, primarily the product of medieval Christianity.
I'd love to, by the way, before you get into this explanation, I love this point you're making, which is more ambitious and audacious probably than many viewers are even noticing, because there's this idea that we all just accept as a matter of course, that our civilization comes from the melding of Greece and Jerusalem. And there are these totally different ways of viewing the world with these totally different perspectives. But really, I think it's overly simplistic to suggest that the Greeks had no sense of the Hebraic view, and that the Hebrews had no sense of the Greek view. And come on, guys, it's pretty close together. And you see harmonies and echoes. Yeah, and that's what you're saying. No, actually, there is a kind of unified cosmology.
They're all inheriting the same tradition. Now that tradition is becoming variegated. It's taking on the idiosyncrasies of these particular cultures as they develop. But there's a source. The answer is it's because there's a source of a narrative. There's a source to the narrative of the flood. There's one particular source, and I would say that source is Noah and his sons. And then that story gets taken by the ancient Mesopotamians, the ancient Sumerians, who I think are the civilization that grew out ultimately of Noah and his sons. And then it's changed, the names are changed, people speak different languages, the details get jumbled, and you get these stories that have similar elements, right? They have these foundational elements, the flood myths, but then they have their idiosyncrasies as well. And that's precisely because all of these stories are founded in the same original narrative.
So then what have
the true story.
Right. What have we gotten wrong about demons?
Okay, so going back to that, so the Western perspective of demons is basically we will view demon as anything that is, well, demonic, anything that is scary or grotesque, we would call a demon.
Or even basic, like an angel that rebels, a bad angel.
Or an angel that rebels. We lump all of that together in this term demon. So in the Western mind, a demon is it's like a boogeyman, basically. It's like anything that's evil and malevolent, supernaturalism, that's all demon. That's a demon. But in the ancient Hebrew cosmology, they were much more narrow in their defining of the word demon. To them, a demon was something very, very specific. A demon was the disembodied spirit of a giant. A giant that died in the antediluvian world before the flood. Their spirit, as this is in the Book of Enoch, by the way, it derives from the Book of Enoch, that their spirit, this is judgment. God judges them that because they're neither wholly of their fathers, their angelic fathers, or of their human mothers, that they're going to be cursed when they die to wander the earth as bodiless vagabonds, as disembodied vagabonds. They're going to be hungry, they're going to be thirsty, presumably they're going to have all the desires of the flesh, but no bodies through which to fulfill those desires, to satiate those desires. That was a curse that was placed on them by God. According to the Book of Enoch, according to ancient Hebrew cosmology, this and only this is the origin of a demon and is what a demon is. And so...
But what about like when Lucifer rebels Satan falls like lightning and leads all the bad angels who rebelled against God, and there's a great battle, and they lose. Spoiler alert. And St. Michael, the archangel, wins. God wins. He always wins. And what about them?
Well,
That's before the
those
giants.
are the insubordinate sons of God. These are the defected sons of God, right? These were the angelic beings who were loyal to the king at one time, but who rebelled and became disloyal and were expelled. And that's what they are, but that they're not.
You're saying that's distinct from.
They're not technically demons. So the demon is, again, specifically according to Hebrew cosmology, a demon is specifically the disembodied spirit of Nephilim. Now, when God, in the Book of Enoch, again, this is a judgment on the giants, on the offspring of the Watchers. They're sentenced to this terrible curse. It's very much like the plot line of the Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one, right? You had Barbossa and his crew. They had the Mayan gold, the cursed Mayan gold, and they had this curse where they were living forever. They were like eternal, but they couldn't satisfy any of the desires of their flesh. Right. And this is represented, this is illustrated with Barbossa, who wants to bite the apple. But he can't, when he bites it, the moon comes out or something, and you see that he's just a skeleton, and there's nowhere for the food to go. He has no tongue, he has no stomach. And all he wants is to be able to satisfy his hunger, to be able to bite that apple. Well, that perfectly illustrates the nature of a demon according to ancient Hebrew cosmology. So you have the disembodied spirits of the giants that are going to persist in the world as vagabond wraiths. That's their curse, much like the Barbossa and his crew's curse. They're going to wander the earth, hungry, thirsty, presumably all of the desires of the flesh, but with no flesh through which to fulfill those desires, to satiate those desires. That's a very torturous existence. So fast forward to the New Testament, I should say, before I go there, and a part of this curse, God tells them that they'll be in this condition until the end of the age, when the age is wholly consummated and the great judge appears. And at that time, they will be judged with finality, right? But until that time, they're going to be cursed to wander the earth in this miserable state. So fast forward to the New Testament. Jesus is walking in Galilee. Jesus is walking all over Judea. And what is he encountering? He's encountering these things called unclean spirits. And going back to the Enochian reference, part of the judgment was God says, evil spirits or unclean spirits you shall be called. Fast forward to the New Testament. Jesus is encountering unclean spirits. And what are these spirits doing? They're inhabiting the bodies of human beings. And when they get inside the body of a human being, it manifests something like epilepsy. The person is rolling around, foaming from the mouth, throwing themselves into the fire, screaming at the top of their lungs. And Jesus would cast these demons out. And they were called unclean spirits. And there's a particular occasion when Jesus is walking on the shores of Gadara, and this is the Gadarene demoniac encounter, where the Gadarene demoniac comes running up to Jesus, and he's full of a legion of demons. I mean, he's full of all kinds of demons, right?
He had his pronouns were the plural pronouns.
It was they, them.
Modern analogy.
Yeah, exactly. Precisely right. He was they, them. And he throws himself at the feet of Jesus. He sees him coming, and he throws himself at the feet of Jesus, and the demons cry out, "What have we to do with you, O Son of God? We know who you are, you Son of God. Why have you come to judge us before the appointed time?"
Right.
So what do we have here? We have a confirmation of the Book of Enoch, because the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, they have no bodies of their own, so what do they want? They want bodies. So they're inhabiting the bodies of human beings, and through the bodies of the people that they possess, they're attempting to satiate these desires that they have, which are otherwise insatiable. And they see who walking on the shore of Gadara? The great judge. But wait a minute, it's not time yet, according to the Book of Enoch. It's not the end of the age yet. That's why they cry out, "What have we to do with you? Why have you come to judge us before the appointed time?" The time had not yet come, and they knew it. So there's a confirmation of that cosmology that comes from First Enoch in this encounter that Jesus has with the Gadarene demoniac, who is a human being possessed by disembodied spirits. So that's the very narrow definition of what a demon is. And as I illustrated before, It's the same idea to the Greeks.
Yeah.
As I said, they believe that the daimons, the daimones, or however you pronounce it in Greek, are disembodied spirits from people who lived in the world before the flood in the Golden Age.